Yo, what's up? Now it's time to review Black Myth Wukong after finishing the game. Let me just start by saying that this is an exceptional game. It is so beautifully crafted. There's nothing but positive vibes about it. But it does have some quite major problems, and I'll get into that at the end of the video. First of all, let's talk about art, stories, and characters. The art is absolutely amazing. It's beautiful, breathtaking. The end chapter animations are so vivid and lively. They tell great stories. The expression, everything is just so well executed. The music, oh my god, the music complements the storytelling in magical ways. Just think about that, the headless bard in chapter 2. That guy is still stuck in my head, right? I don't really quite understand what he's saying, but whatever he was saying is still stuck in my head. The story also has this grittiness and the edge to it to be really incredibly intriguing. For example, the tale of the Bull King in chapter 5, holy shit, that absolutely blew my mind. Like the courageous portrayal of his defiance to authority, that was not something I expected out of a Chinese game. And also like the goofy thing and morally gray thing going on with the pig. He's kind of a cool guy. You like him hanging around. He's kind of cool, And he's kind of flimsy and unreliable at times, but yeah, it's a cool sidekick. I mean, overall, the artistic expression of this game is without a question 10 out of 10. Alas, I digress, right? You don't play those kind of games for really that story. I mean, as good as the stories were, you don't really play those kind of games for the story. So let's talk about the meat of this, the gameplay. So I am going to break down the gameplay into 4 different sections and talk about each of them. The combat, the boss design, the difficulty, and the environments. Oh boy, do I have a lot to say about each of them. Alright, let's start with combat. The combat itself, it takes some time getting used to, right? There's a lot of kind of intricate mechanic and how different resources and how different status interact with each other, what kind of things affects the other thing, and how they all work together. The animations are very fluid. The sound and visual effects of parries and iframes are quite satisfying, especially those perfect dodges. When you do those perfect dodge and the whoosh sound, holy shit. I mean, don't you love hearing that? And also, the animation locks. They become sort of less noticeable after you play the game for a while, that you've gotten used to them. So it was okay. I mean, it's still annoying to have animation locks, but in order for the gameplay or at least the feel of the game to feel fluid, I think those level of animation lock is acceptable, right? And it doesn't really impact the game in such a negative way. And you eventually get used to it as the time goes on, as you play more of the game. Now, the talent tree and itemizations, when you get to the end of the game, it's so incredible. There's so many different weapons you can use. They all incentivizes different playstyles, and the talent tree gives you so many options. The talent tree is so open. You can spec into anything that you want. It's so awesome. And talent tree combined with the itemizations, the armor set, and some of the unique item you get along the way through secret bosses and secrets just in different chapters. That just give you so many variety as a gameplay that is simply just incredible to just try different things out. I ended up trying out at least 5 different builds throughout the entire playthrough, and every single one of them felt super satisfying to play. So the hits on the enemies feel pretty impactful, although not so much conversely, right? When you hit an enemy, especially with a spear weapon, it was quite satisfying. It felt quite impactful. But sometimes when an enemy hits you, it doesn't really quite feel like you've been hit, yet you lose health. So that's just a small nitpicking that I have, right? Different spells and utilities also offer great gameplay variability. You have the spirit skill, the vessels, all different kinds of transformation. I was stunned by how many different transformations you can get. You can even get a transformation at the very end of the game, and that is simply just incredible. And not only that, the OP staff stance that belongs to the Grey Sage that you can only use in Chapter 4, apparently you can unlock that for all of gameplay if you finish the game 3 times and unlock every single trait of all of your relics. How crazy and amazing is that? That was insane, man. That is simply insane. And all of those things, everything I've just mentioned, let it be the itemizations, the skills, all the spells, all the spirits, the transformation, everything was so satisfying to use. And overall, the combat is absolutely a 9 out of 10, right? With the only downside of maybe sometimes some of the spell description is not very intuitive and some of the actions not very intuitive. The one prime example I have is with the smash stance. The first skill that you can get is in fact a parry technique that you can use, that you can practice on, but the game kind of delivered in a strange way that I didn't quite understand. But that might be because of like translation issues. And the other thing is that there is from time to time like strange hitboxes, and the targeting with the pillar stance is sometimes very wonky and very weird. But those are all just small gripes. This is why I give the combat a 9 out of 10. Alright, let's talk boss design. The boss design are all very unique. There are only about 2 bosses where it feel like they're copy paste, and that will be the Stone Vanguard in Chapter 2 and the Flint Vanguard in Chapter 5. And that is not, I'm not shitting on this game for that, right? There are 90 bosses in this game. 90! And bro, the frogs, literally the same model with different textures, but all of them have unique and distinct mechanics, right? The lightning frog, the frost frog, the poison frog, the fire frog, and the kung fu frog at the very end. The fact that they literally made the same boss so distinct in different chapters is an absolute testament to the quality of their boss design. Like, although the boss fights themselves are a little bit more lenient on mistakes, there are a couple of tough bosses in this entire game. And if you want to know more about that, you should check out my top 5 video on hardest boss fights for more detail. But the fights are challenging enough to feel fun and engaging. For the most part, I give the boss design of this game a straight out 10 out of 10. Alright, let's talk difficulty. As I said, the boss fights are on the easier side with a few exceptions, but the beauty about the difficulty design of this game is that you can very much have variable difficulty depending on how you decide to approach this game. Like for example, right? Smash stance is decidedly the most challenging stance to use due to the requirement of perfectly timing your parries. And on top of that, it doesn't have the same reach as thrust, nor does it have the verticality of the pillar. Whereas if you choose the other 2 stances, you will have a much easier time on a lot of the boss fights. And the same goes for spells. Immobilize is decidedly easier to use than Ring of Fire and Spellbinder until you reach Erlang maybe. And Cloud Step is simply just a better version of Rock Solid. Furthermore, you can artificially amp up the challenge of the game by personally deciding to forego the transformation and the spirit and the vessel and all that kind of stuff, and making the game artificially more challenging for you. And for their effort in integrating an organic difficulty option like this into the game, and in my honest opinion, executing it very well, I give the difficulty design of this game an absolute 10 out of 10. Now to clarify for the morons out there, I'm not saying that this is the hardest game ever. I'm simply stating that the difficulty design is very well done. Alright, last thing, environment. Okay, this is where the game fell short. And by falling short, I mean it nose dove off of the side of the fucking Himalayas. Okay, how do I put this lightly? The environment looks beautiful, but the gameplay of the environment is practically non existent. And I'm not talking about the linearity of some of the levels, especially when chapter 3 and 4 really opens up on explorable areas. And the pacing of the levels are also pretty well done, where most of the exploration are kind of in a mixed section of the game, so that at the beginning, the players don't feel overwhelmed, and at the end, the story element feels concise and impactful without too much distractions. But goddamn, did I feel fucking awful whenever I'm not fighting anything. The constrained manner with which they constructed the entire game environment killed any level of tension and suspense that you usually feel with exploring Souls games. I need not to mention any more than the masterpiece of level design that is Dark Souls 1, let alone the transgenerational innovation that is Elden Ring's open world. But in this game, like people say it's a boss rush game. But not, I don't think it's a boss rush game. I simply just want to quit the fucking game on my way to the boss. The only saving grace of the environment and level design is the dynamic and hidden secrets spread throughout all the levels. This is almost as bad as the environmental gameplay in God of War. And for that game, I will give that level design a 1 out of 10. Now, before people start blasting me in the comments, think about when we as gamers push back against the rhetoric of Baldur's Gate 3 setting too high of a standard for the industry and how much of a horseshit that is. What about now? Like, Elden Ring has clearly set a new standard for how this type of game should approach level designs. Why shouldn't we hold Black Myth Wukong to that standard? Right? That makes perfect sense to me. Anyway, the environment in Black Myth Wukong is a 4 out of 10. And overall, this is an exceptional game that I will consider to be an 8 out of 10. Also, for some references, I consider God of War to be a 6 out of 10 and Elden Ring to be a 10 out of 10. Right, that's it for the review. Hope you agree. If you have your own thoughts, leave it in the comments, subscribe, and do all that kind of stuff. I'll see you in the next one.